Okay, I think we're live. It's hard to tell. Sometimes it's hard to tell on YouTube, but yes, we are definitely live. So let me mute myself over there. Okay, awesome. Let me hit that record button so we can get going. And I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be great. Awesome. We have a really great show today, and I'm excited to interview my guest, Nonku Kunene. First of all, I love your name. You guys can't see it, but she is wearing these beautiful earrings. They are of the continent Africa, and they got the different colors on them. And she's just got all this color behind her. And I'm guessing this has something to do with what you do, because you are a children's book author, right? Nonku. I was going to call you Kunene. Yeah, Nonku, so children's author. How did you get into being a children's author?
Oh yes, it was something that was unexpected. I never thought about it. My children inspired me, and great loss in my life also inspired me to really write and just letting out a lot of things that I had in my mind, in my head, and in my heart. And so I started writing. It was mostly like dealing with grief, and also like I wanted to have a positive message out there for my children to be able to celebrate who they are. Hence the titles of my book are all about celebrating ourselves and loving who we are.
Have you always been the kind of person who's loved who you are, or is this something that had to develop in time?
Yeah, it definitely had to develop in time. You know, I didn't realize how much the time it took me to get to where I am today. Honestly, it's always, yes, I've always been positive, but I definitely had a lot of areas where I didn't feel like I was embracing who I am. And so it took a lot of things to get me to where I am today. And it was a long journey, honestly. And I'm grateful I'm here. But yes, definitely not always have been like this. That's why I want to teach children at an early age to learn to love themselves, to learn to stand up for themselves, and to learn to use their voices, whatever that means, but to just really be who they are and enjoy and embrace that. So yes.
And so the books that you have, I know you have some other things. We have some free gifts that we're going to give at the end here. But so the books that you're writing, have you already seen those help children?
Yes, in so many ways. Like I have even adults buying these books for their older children. Like I had like a few of my customers bought it for their literally teenagers because the message is just so powerful and great. Everybody needs to be reminded, because even in my culture, right, we are all different. We might all be the same skin, but this colorism, we don't embrace the different shades of skin that we are. And it's so important to be reminded that we all have a purpose, and we all work together when we come together with our beautiful skin. That's the diversity. So appreciating and embracing that is very, very important. So yes, I've seen it doing some wonders to a lot of people, and I'm grateful for that.
Well, that's fantastic. Now you were born in Africa, and then you're in the States now. How long have you been in the States?
Yes. Yes, I was born in Swaziland. It's a small country in South Africa. It's like at the very, very bottom. I know I'm showing my earrings, but like at the very tip of the continent. And I was fortunate to leave my country and get a scholarship to Canada when I was 16 years old. And I was there for a couple of years in Victoria, British Columbia. And when I finished my high school there, then I would move to America. So I moved here in 2003.
2003. Okay, so you've been here for a while. And what have you noticed that, because you mentioned colorism, which I haven't heard that term before, but I know that there's prejudices, whether it's, white to black to brown to different colors. But from what I was understanding you saying is you're talking about colorism, which is like in the same, like maybe that it's different shades of black, right? Or there's different shades of white as well. So share with me that experience. Like, what does that really mean? And you just like educate me on this. I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, definitely. So colorism is really the preference of a certain skin tone, complexion, or shade of skin, and within blacks, right? So there's very light skin, right? And then there's different shades, like a tan. I talk about this in my book. Like some people have medium skin, like the little sand tones, and then there's other people with like darker skins, like more like the deep almond, the roasted almond, kind of space. And so, within even the same culture, like there's like and I know like even people, some of my friends back home, when they read my book, they said I was dark skinned and people used to laugh at me and they were always like really bully you because you're dark skinned. And so there's always that thing within the same culture. And then also like that kind of takes another layer, right? When you think about it in different races as well. Like there's just always like something about our skin that, I think it's like the biggest thing that we see. And it's like the first thing that we see when you look at people, somehow that it creates this prejudice or something against that skin tone, which I don't understand, but it's just like a thing, right? And so the colorism is really within the same race, but like just a preference for a certain skin tone shade of skin within the same color.
Okay. And how did that affect you growing up? And then did you see a vast difference, like when you went from Africa to Canada, and then you went from Canada to the United States? Like what kind of differences did you see within the three different countries?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when we think about colorism, I didn't think too much about it then. I just know when, outside of colorism, like I always, because I went through some childhood trauma, and I felt like people could see from my skin that I went through something, right? And then of course, when as a child, my face was always lighter than the rest of my body, like my legs. And so, people always make fun of me for that. And so they kind of created like I was conscious about that. And I just felt like, something is wrong with me, or like something is like off with me, right? So that was like back home. When I go to Canada, honestly, I would say I didn't feel so much of that, when I was in Canada. And I could have been in a different phase of my life and kind of acclimating to being, first time in a plane. There's so many experiences, seeing snow for the first time. There was a lot of things that have changed my life when I was in Canada. I don't know if I was just like missing something, but I didn't really experience too much of that, honestly. And maybe I had so many other experiences that were clouded, but definitely when I moved to America, I did experience like that difference, or like just yeah, like I think I don't know if we're gonna call it disparity, but like that inequality where you just feel like you're not enough as you are, and it's just limiting to some extent, and it just really makes you doubt who you are and doubt yourself as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy if you think about it, how we don't really need other people to talk bad about us for us to talk bad about ourselves, because I think oftentimes people are their own worst enemy, saying negative things about themselves. But then when you get somebody else that says something negative about you, most of us will tend to just like let it chip away at our very, like our brain and our soul. And
Yeah.
it moves us into a different direction, which is kind of an interesting concept, something that I've been kind of paying attention to with a lot of people. Is there, like you mentioned, you had some childhood trauma, and I think a lot of, probably the majority of the planet has some level of trauma. And they call traumas the little t trauma and the big T trauma, which I don't really know what the difference is, because to me, trauma is trauma. It's all in how we interpret the trauma, I guess, is what I'm trying to say here. But one thing that I've been noticing is that there are some people who grow up in very traumatic environments, and they use that trauma to fuel them to do better. And then there's others who experience those traumatic environments and use that trauma to make them like settle down or sit back. And that was me. Because I experienced, childhood trauma, and I ended up I had a lot of fears, and I didn't let myself stand up and say, here I am, this is what I'm all about. No, instead I went and I hid, is what I did. And I think a lot of people do that as well. So I'm curious, the trauma that you did experience, would you care to elaborate on that a little bit for us, just so we can, hear what it was that you went through?
Yeah, no, definitely. So I don't remember the ages, because I was very young. I definitely will say I was probably like 7 or 8 when it started. I was sexually molested by family, over and over for years. And I honestly could not talk about it. I don't know why. And somehow I think I stopped talking about it because in my head, I thought I was protecting my sisters and my family. I was just the only one who was going through this bad thing. And so I'm going to be the sacrificial lamb to like take on this bad thing, so that my sisters or whoever is around me doesn't go through the same thing. And it did take a lot from me, but it also, like you were saying, like the different type, it fuels me, like, because we grew up from very humble beginnings. And one thing that I always dreamed to do was to change the narrative for my family, for myself, because I didn't want to be poor. I didn't want to see people around me being poor, especially in my village. And so it really fueled me to have like a different sense of human interaction, like where I started from a very early age caring for children. I remember during even, school breaks, I'll be like buying little, you know, chalk and little boards, and I was teaching all those kids from the village to like learn different things. And so it was very different. And but I never talked about it. I just buried it and I just went through it. I buried for years. I mean, 4 years. And it took my father's passing away that it just kind of uncovered. And it was like 3 years ago. And so like it's like over 20 years, like almost 30 years ago. And then it literally, it's close to 30 years ago, because I was 7 years old. I'm 37 years old right now. And so it took my father's passing away for me to like really deal with it and like really understand the impact of it, even because I just buried it and I just pretended like I was okay, but I wasn't fully okay and I wasn't living my life to the fullest. And so like writing and doing what I'm doing right now is really pushing me to two elements and to be myself and really truly enjoy and embrace who I am. And of course, being a mother does that too, because I wanted to be true to myself for my children, because I wanted them to experience me 100%, not that person who's still dealing and still has things buried inside her and all of those things. So yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'm sorry that's just so terrible, because it does happen more often than we know about, because someone like you yourself, you didn't share it, right? You didn't share it for all those years. So how many other women are sitting there right now hearing this, who have experienced something like that? They haven't brought to the surface to either share with others, or maybe it's with a therapist, just somebody to share that message out there. Now, when you did share it, or you did, come to that realization, did you share it with your family? And if so, did they express that they had had some similar situations? Here you were protecting them, but were they experiencing some of the same situations?
Yeah, I found out they did. It was very different for them, but yeah, to some extent they did experience it. And it's very heartbreaking, all these years I couldn't even be there to support them. It was very hard for me. And that's when I started honestly writing and sharing my story, because I wanted to inspire children who are going through it right now to be able to speak up. Hence my second book, Celebrating Our Voices. I want them to be able to speak up. It's strong and it's brave and it's bold to stand up for what you believe, is wrong, and just really speaking up. So yeah, it was unfortunate and it was really heartbreaking, but I did talk about it. And part of my healing process, actually, I faced and I talked to those people who abused me. I had to speak to them. I had to voice out and say, and just say, like, I'm not gonna be quiet anymore. Like, I'm not gonna be silent. I'm not gonna be afraid. And it was so necessary for me to say that and to speak through it. And it was hard, but I wanted to go through that uncomfortable, difficult situation, because it was more like a breaking the ice and just like really bridging this block that has been holding me all these years. And now I can freely be, because I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not afraid of whoever, right? I can just be myself and express exactly what I feel. And so it's been a journey. I am enjoying it. It's difficult, but it's such a growth opportunity for me. And I'm just grateful for it, honestly.
Good for you for, standing up and saying, you know what, I'm no longer fearful of you, and saying something to them. Because for me, the abuse, the clearing that I had, came after both of my parents were already passed away. So it's a lot easier when they're not still here, than when they are still here, right? Because to confront is different. I was confronting people who were no longer here physically in the body. And so your work that you do now, because you are, a children's book author, you have, your first book is called I Celebrate My Skin. And then the next book you said is called Celebrate Our Voices.
I Celebrate My Voice.
Celebrate My Voice. And so why don't you share with us like what those books are about? You're telling us a little bit, but I want to hear like what are those books about, and what inspired you to actually write them? Because people have ideas all the time, but not everybody writes about it or writes to help others. So share with us like why would I want to buy those books either for myself, my child, or you said teenagers, even teenagers. So tell us a little bit about the books.
Yes, definitely. So I Celebrate My Skin is the first book in the series, and it teaches children to love and embrace who they are. We talk about how we all have different skin tones, but we should all embrace it and celebrate it because we come together like the rainbow and we make this world bright and beautiful. So the gist of it is really, I started writing I Celebrate My Skin fast because, as I mentioned earlier, I was never comfortable in my own skin. And mostly because of the trauma, and I had like this different skin tones, my face, my legs, my everything was very different, and I was very uncomfortable with that. And so when I saw my child and I saw his face had different tone, skin tone than his leg, I realized that, I spent all these years, right, being self-conscious because of the trauma, thinking like it's a mark, all of you just create this narrative in your head about what you're up and you're so conscious about, and it becomes the story. And I wanted to change that for my children because at the end of the day, it was genetics. It's genetics. My child has the same different tones, right? It's genetics and it's just who I am. And so I spent all these years learning and discovering who I am, how powerful it is for myself to teach my children and other children to really look at themselves and embrace them who they are. Look at themselves in the mirror and say, I love my nose just the way it is. And it's so powerful, right? And I have activities that kind of like really like drive the message up along as well. So then my second book, Celebrating Our Voices, it's really the harder one, right? Because for me, speaking up was very hard. And so it's a way for me to really get into children and saying it's okay to speak up. Actually, you should speak up. You have a voice, and your voice could be just a little baby babbling, right? Trying to get that rattle, like trying to crawl through that rattle. It could be just expressing who you are, individuality, however you come up and show up in the world, that's who you are. And it's very important to embrace that. So we talk about our voices, how it's so many different things, but it's really the courage to be able to speak up. And I'm hoping with that, as I'm sharing my message, sharing my story, I can inspire children that it's okay to speak up. And I'm hoping that they don't have to wait 20 plus years to speak up. They speak up right away. And that's the mission. It's all about accepting who you are, embracing your story, but more importantly, not being afraid to show up for yourself in this world. And that's the message in the books. And that's what I'm really hoping to accomplish with this books as well.
That's so beautiful. I love that because I was 51 when I started to embrace who I am. So 51 years. Do I regret it? No, I don't have any regrets about, my life. But would I like to have discovered it earlier? Heck yeah, because it really does make a difference. But my most recent book is called Invisible No More, Invincible Forevermore. And it's exactly like what you're talking about. It's, women sharing their story of going from being invisible to feeling invincible. Like, here I am, not afraid to share my voice anymore. And it's such an important thing. Like you said, with children, especially, there's oftentimes, oh, shut up, kid, or, kids are better seen than heard. Go sit down and shut up. We don't want to hear what you have to say. Oh, you're lying. Like all of these different things that adults say. So your books actually would be great for parents to read as well, to maybe tap into some of the things they may be saying to their kids that are causing their kids to stifle their voice. And it can be something so simple as, I don't want to hear from you. you could say that one time to your kid, and that could be the one time that will completely stifle their voice for decades to come. You never know. Your words are extremely powerful. So what, you have some free gifts for us. Share with us, like, what are the free gifts that you have? And I'll drop you a link in the comments there for them to pick up those free gifts. What do you got for us?
Yeah. Yes, right now I have a crossword puzzle, I have a skin tone matching game, and also and a rainbow, right? Like we talk about good for adults as well. Like the crossword puzzle is for more older kids, and the skin tone matching game is for more younger kids.
Okay,
Can
so
you hear
just so
me?
you know, oh,
Okay.
shoot, got bad audio.
Wait.
I'm going to remove us off of YouTube.
Um,
Okay, oh, can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so go ahead and because we're doing this for the podcast, the Women Action Takers podcast, and I lost everything you mentioned about the free gift. so
Oh,
so go ahead
no.
and start with the free gifts again, and then I'll just have my editors edit that part out, that because we weren't able to understand anything. So what free gifts do you have for us today?
Yeah, so on my website, I do have some freebies for everyone. It's a skin tone matching game that kind of partnered up with the Celebrate My Skin. You're able to help children match their different skin tone. And my son loved it because he will tell me, my friend's skin tone, my friend is this skin tone, and I am this skin tone, and so on and so forth. That's the first thing. And the second thing is the crossword puzzle, which again is for all the kids. It's really like a way to like help them understand the message that that have read from I Celebrate My Skin. And then the last one is, of course, the coloring page, which is a beautiful illustrated rainbow, and you can do so many activities as well with that.
What I love about the idea of the skin matching game, the skin tone matching game, is that they get to see that it's just a color, right? Because like they're going around trying to match their skin tone to it's just a color. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean you're different than me. You're just because our colors, they really aren't what, that's not what makes us, different. It's who we are that makes us different. So wow, I want to thank you so much for the work you do to help children. I myself, I ran away when I was 5 years old, and I was gone for an entire week. And it was because of the abuse that I was growing up in. And so it's possible that if I had something, a guide like you to help me through those times, I wouldn't have been able to read though at 5. Well, maybe I started reading around 5 years old. But anyway, you're just having games like that and having the ability to tap into that, I think is so extremely helpful for kids. And so thank you so much for the work you do. But what's next for you? What is next for you?
What's next for me, honestly, is more. Like I want to share more of who I am. I feel I've been so silent for so long. Like these books are just the beginning of what I'm doing, and I am open to more things. I want to do more speaking and more speaking events. I want to inspire crowds, different people, to really believe in the power of their stories. Like you mentioned that you were 50 years old, 51 years old when you started opening up, and we don't regret it. Like your story is your story. I know sometimes it's through the pain where we learn different things, but it teaches us so many things about ourselves, and so we can share and inspire others through our stories. And so for me, like the next thing is really focusing more on speaking engagements, inspiring children, and eventually, I want to have a nonprofit back home where I am really helping those children who are going through some abuse, who want to speak up, who need any kind of help, building them up, healing them, providing an avenue for them to really focus and deal with their trauma, hopefully at an early age. And I'm hoping that that will help them to do more, right? To share their story or do more at an early age. So there's so much more in store for me, but I think it all revolves around building a community, helping others to really believe in the narrative and to believe in their stories, because we all have stories and our stories matters, And that's really our superpowers, honestly. And so that's important to share and inspire others to do the same as well.
That's so true. So true.
Yeah.
And I forgot, there's one last question I ask every single guest, and that is, what is one action step our audience can take today, tomorrow, or next week that will uplevel their personal and or professional life? One action step they can take. Were you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
I think, yes, I did. It was like fuzzy a little bit. So one action step,
Yes.
one action step that will help somebody professionally and personally to really start, doing the best thing. I think one action step is to start saying positive things to yourself and just really believing in yourself. I think anything that you can do, right? I could be educated, I could have a very high job and have a nice car, have a nice house. Like I could have a lot of things around me, right? But at the end of the day, they don't really impact who I am at the core of myself. And so a lot of those work that we need to do to be successful, I believe it starts with you embracing and just enjoying who you are. And so one big action step will be starting to be positive to yourself and believing in yourself and slowly knowing that you have the power to make the change in anything you want to do.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that. That is so important. So you heard it right here, is say positive things to yourself. Get started in that immediately, like right now, right in this very moment. I am amazing. I am great. I am loved. I am beautiful. My skin is beautiful the way it is. My legs are beautiful the way they are, right? My
Yes.
weight is beautiful the way it is. And then my hair, I have beautiful hair. I used to say I have ugly brown hair is what I used to say. And now it's like, I have beautiful, beautiful brown straight hair, so just change your words, change your life. And I want to thank you so much, Nonku, for being here and for the work that you do to make this planet a better place. Everybody go ahead and share this episode out if you enjoyed what you heard. And remember, go back and get those free gifts. You never know whose life you're going to impact when you share those with everybody.